So Dave Knox from banddirector.com has attached to the webcast here a clinic handout that I did several years ago in Chicago called From Carnegie Hall to the 50-Yard Line, sort of developing the concept of sound in the marching band. We can talk the specifics about that, but this concept you're talking about right here is essentially a philosophy that excellence is excellence. If it's on a marching snare drum, if it's on the triangle part to one of Frank DeKelly's pieces,
absolutely,
it's excellence. Dr. Cannon is a former percussionist. We say he's a full-time conductor. In my brief time with you, I don't think I've heard you perform as a percussionist, but I know you grew up as a percussionist.
I did.
Talk about your kind of connect into the conversation John was having about your view of it as a high school student, and help maybe some of the students and young directors watching about sort of a way to look at it in a healthy way, their participation in it and what's in it in the future and that kind of topic.
Yeah, well, percussionists we grow up having to play everything. We play all different styles. We play drum set, triangle, timpani, marimba, marching snare drum, all of that stuff. And it's just the same. An extension of that is being able to succeed in all different sorts of ensembles: jazz band, concert band, symphony orchestra, marching band, other sorts of chamber ensembles, whatever it may be. And and directors can help students to succeed in all those ensembles by placing a high value on all of them, learning as much as they can about all the different kinds of ensembles, and making sure that all of those different experiences are a priority, so that when students go on to college, that they have those different backgrounds, and if they decide they want to play in the marching band, they understand what it takes to do that. If they want to play in a concert band, they understand that. If they want to try to play in a jazz combo or play in a band that plays in restaurants and things like that they would be able to have that experience.
So no different than any musician whose goal is to be well-rounded.
Yeah, and especially in today's world, there's sometimes fewer and fewer opportunities to play professionally, and we have to be far more diverse in our styles.
Okay, we were talking about expectations. So if the chronology of where we are is the spring is dedicated to dealing with the feedback from the previous year, to making it creating tangible issues from the feedback to add to next year's ensemble, so we can be better than we were this year, which is constantly a goal for us. Then there's creating. We'll jump over the design process. That would obviously be next for all of us. I think there's probably far too much diversity in the audience that's watching today in terms of the kinds of shows that everybody does. So we're at a Big Ten university where we do, we have 8 home football games and do essentially that many halftime shows. We do shows that are designed to be learned in 3 or 4 or 5 days. And whereas many who are watching, that's the farthest thing from what they do. So we'll leave that topic alone because that's a great topic for another discussion. We all know how different that is from school to school, band to band, tradition to tradition. So if we leapfrog over that, now we're at something that I think is universal to everybody, which is the create expectations for the ensemble. If this is a staff, a director and group of staff members watching, I highly recommend the process, revisiting the goals and expectations for not only what your marching band will be like in the fall, but for what the next rehearsal you have with your wind ensemble is going to be, your personal goals for study. The establishment of goals and expectations is an exercise that I think we take far too casually and far too lightly. And so I've got a couple of those I'll share, and then it's going to sort of ring of me personally and philosophically, but this is part of the clinic. And I just got a couple of bullet points here. For me now, having done this 23, going on 24 years, I'm getting I'm getting to that point where I put as a signature on our time in the band together things that are personal to me. And I think every director, every person who's in charge of an ensemble does the same thing. It ultimately takes the shape of them. So maybe to a fault, I get labeled as doing that. The very first thing on my list is that the time we spend in rehearsal with our ensemble is special, that no student comes with any burden, and I have to build that. So that's my number one priority, that all of our time spent together as a staff and students is special. That the sounds we make in the Spartan Marching Band are beautiful. It's funny, when I go do band clinics, I sometimes get quickly to the tone argument and cut through all the technique and say, can we just make this beautiful? I think everybody understands beauty. That rehearsal time is for ensemble development, not for the practicing of things. Now that's a goal for any ensemble. I think in marching band it's challenging. We do have to practice things for them. There is repetition. There's no doubt about it. Teach the ensemble that to be independently prepared makes the ensemble that much better. If we can get the 100% independence factor to happen, if every student comes to every rehearsal prepared with the independence factor, your drill, your music, your work, your drum book, etc. That we're a team-oriented atmosphere, that we're goal-oriented in terms of our achievement, that we're committed to high standards musically, visually, technically, and that we prioritize becoming more musical away from the rehearsal, so that when we return to the rehearsal. Now that's every ensemble. That's not just the Spartan Marching Band. There are a lot of challenges that make marching band unique. So I'll throw it to Orlando. He's been our guard instructor here for how many years now?
It'll be 8 years.
8 years, and he's a WGI judge. He has a DCI background. He's a color guard expert, and he's Lansing resident, a Michigan State graduate, and we're really lucky to have him teaching our guard. And the list that I just made, would you mind sharing sort of your expectations for our guard? Is that something you could kind of put into words for us?
Yeah. A lot of times you talk about the ensemble. With color guard, it's all about visual, and the visual has to do with enhancement of the music. And with a color guard...
If you were going to tell a bunch of band directors what a guard is about, or parents that don't know. I mean, yeah, I like what you just said. Enhancement of the music. Is there a simpler way to say what the guard is?
I would say that the color guard is the visual support for what you're hearing.
Beautiful. Help the audience see the music.
Right.
Perfect.
And whether that's performed through theatrical acting, color guards nowadays are a little bit more involved, where they're not just military anymore, where they're just marching and doing presents. They're a lot more involved, where you have theatrics, you have some that are much more involved, where you're involving dance, choreography. What we do here at Michigan State is, because we have a diverse background in our performers, where we might have an instrumentalist that has changed over to color guard, or a high school student who's come into the program that has basically very limited range, we try to explore a little bit more variety and not just marching technique and learning how to spin well, but also trying to involve the body and actually make it more fit into today's modern performance.
And we also have performers who are from high-level drum corps and BOA bands.